Hey, everybody, welcome to NTWC Plus. Good to have you along today as we get to the end of the 2025 hurricane season. We're always happy when we get to the end of a hurricane season. Finally, we can rest, and that doesn't mean there's nothing left, but generally it does. Every once in a while something pops up late. Our program today is going to be relatively quick. We're going to wrap up the hurricane season. Our guest had a last minute commitment and had to go elsewhere. So it's just going to be Hurricane Hal and I. Good morning, Hal. Where are you this morning in front of that flowered wall?
I'm in Galveston on the island, but yeah, it feels like flowery summer here. We've been in the 80s every day. Sure doesn't feel like mid-November.
Boy, that's for sure. That's for sure. And it's the same way here in deep South Texas. I'm in Edinburgh, as you know, and it's been running 90 degrees every day. Crazy warm. Let's thank our sponsors real quickly before we get started. Just let them know we appreciate what they do for us week in and week out. We start with USAA. Oh, my goodness. I remember, Alex, when you and I went to USA one day and walked those halls and went through locked door after locked door after locked door, Alex, and we finally got to a meeting room that nobody could find because it was, E47F or something. And we sat down with the folks at USAA and they agreed to do this with us. And that goes back a long time. And that was
It does. It goes back a long, long time. I remember we almost got lost in there.
And that was with the guide. We almost got lost.
Yeah, exactly, because the guide got lost.
Yes, because that's one big building they've got on the northwest side of San Antonio.
Yeah.
But we asked, will you do this with us? And it was this and some of the other events we were doing. And of course, NTWC, the National Tropical Weather Conference itself. And from the very beginning, they said yes. And because they like what we're doing and they see the relevance of it. And that really made a difference. So big thanks to USAA and Alex. That was a few years ago. And we're glad they're still along.
Yeah, we're sitting here, almost number 18, I think.
Yes.
Which is really, really good.
So thanks to USAA. We appreciate all you do. They're not alone. When we had the idea of doing this live in person, we thought South Padre Island, just because that was convenient for me. It was close, but also a fun place to hang out. So we went to the South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau and talked if they would partner with us, and they said yes. So they've been along from the very beginning when we started doing this National Tropical Weather Conference, and we go back every year and talk to them about it again, and they always just jump all over it because, again, they understand the relevance and they see that we're making a difference in the preparedness community and getting people, getting the preparers ready, the broadcasters ready. The weather company, they provide the weather graphics that a lot of TV stations around the country use to show you at home what's going on in the weather world. They've been part of what we've been doing for a long time. Weather Boy, oh my goodness, they're so much fun. Weather Boy, of course, you can check out their website. It's a great site, but they proposed the idea of bringing college students, all expenses paid, to the conference so that they could meet the scientists and maybe inspire another person to become a Josh Morganman or a Hal Needham or an Alex Garcia or whatever it may be, a Bill Reed, and to meet and across the table from folks and be part of it. And so
it's always exciting when we do that, to see all those 500, 600 kids that are in that one place, and Josh starts up his video. Everybody goes wild on that one. It's really good, and then all the rest of the speakers as well. They really enjoy that, and we were talking the other day. They're still remembering it even 2 years later.
Oh yeah. I can be walking through the grocery store and somebody will stop me and say, "Hey, I met you at South Padre Island." I said, "Really? Where?" I said, "Out at that conference, where the guy chases hurricanes, that thing, And they remember the hurricane hunters, the Air Force guys, and they remember Hal, and they remember everybody, and it's really cool. So thanks to everybody for that. And finally, LiveView. LiveView is the company that does the little backpack units and things like that local TV stations use to do live broadcasts from anywhere on the planet, basically. Used to be, remember the first conference, Alex, that we had to rent a satellite truck?
I remember that. I was the one who rented it.
Yes, had to rent a satellite truck, a big old satellite truck. Subsequent conferences, my TV station provided that for quite a while.
Yeah.
Once my station got one, they provided it. But it's a big old satellite truck, and we'd roll it up there and run cables from the parking lot out to the beach. And oh my gosh, what a pain.
Oh, I remember that. And that one year that we had Neil Frank out there, and we just got that cold front in right on cue when we started the live shot. All the dust comes up and the wind blows, and it was perfect because Neil was out there flying in the win.
So true, so true. And I believe it was Max Mayfield that got sandblasted in his eyes.
Yes.
In that one. So yeah, and that was the long cable. But now Live View provides these little things that are I'm looking for a backpack about this big, the size of a backpack, and that's how we broadcast live, all wireless. And Live View provides those for us for the conference. So thanks to Live View for doing that. Sorry, satellite truck people. I'm not gonna say we don't need you anymore. Sometimes we do, but for this conference, I think we're good to go. So thanks to all the sponsors that make this a possibility. So Hal, you've been part of this program for a long time now. We appreciate you. I saw you in a news story or something somewhere, and we thought we need to get this guy because he's pretty cool. So we're glad you've been part of this.
You were just talking about South Padre, and I just wanted to say, for me, I mean, for so many people that come to National Tropical Weather Conference in person in April, everyone I've ever talked to, they're like, it's their favorite conference ever. I think it's two things. It's the community. We all stay together. We're all in the same session. We eat meals together. It really is a community. But then the venue that y'all have set up there with the open air venue right on the beach, where we can, do socials and have that last evening soiree. It's just such a great setup as well. And I just want to encourage our listeners to come out to South Padre. Like, it's amazing to connect with us every week virtually, but coming out in person in April, it really is a life-changing or professionally changing experience for so many people.
And, and what conference do you go to where they actually set up fireworks for you? Right.
You never forget the first year.
Yeah, you got to tell the story on that one.
Yeah, and clearly we don't have a big program plan today, so we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. And bear with us for this. The first year we were on the north end of the island, we were at the Hilton, I remember, and we had our farewell party at Clayton's. And Clayton's is the big beach bar right next door, and it was still relatively new. And so we all walked from the Hilton over to Clayton's, and we met indoors. They had a little because it was a little cool outside, so we met indoors, and then right at 9:15, we said, okay, we're done. Let's work our way back to the Hilton. We knew what time it was. As soon as we walked outside, fireworks, boom, 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 and everybody was just, oh my gosh, this is so impressive that not only you put on a great conference, but you put fireworks for us. I've never been to a conference that does fireworks. And we're like, yeah, well, for you guys, we'll do anything. We really appreciate you guys coming, making the trip to South Padre, and the fireworks lasted 10 or 15 minutes, and we're just kind of taking credit for it. And then the DJ comes on and says, don't forget, folks, every Friday night, fireworks here at Clayton's. It's like, oh, man.
It just kind of blew it out, didn't it?
But we do still have fireworks most years. So that makes it fun. So we've had a good time. And one of the cool things, too, I think, is the number of retired meteorologists that keep coming back. One, to maintain their seals, but two, just because they like being part of the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Think about Dave Brown, from Memphis, who comes every year. Dave, we appreciate your presence if you're watching. And Dan Kotlowski, who's retired from AccuWeather, still comes just because he appreciates the conversation.
Guys, that's, something really special about the community is how, I guess you would call it intergenerational, everywhere from retirees down through, middle-aged professionals, all the way down to college and high school students, all in one venue, sharing meals together. I mean, that aspect of the conference for me is amazing. And I've heard so many of the high school and college students, they're really inspired that a retired meteorologist or a current professional meteorologist would want to engage with them and ask questions to them.
That's what the whole thing is about, is to get those young ones in and get them really excited about it by being right next to these guys. What other conference can you go to where you're sitting right there next to Jamie Rome, or back in the day, you were sitting next to like Phil Klotzbeck or other meteorologists or even Max Mayfield? You couldn't do that at another conference.
No, and I think all of us, we go home and 15, 20 years ago, if you told me I'd have Neil Frank's cell number, or Jamie Rome, if I have a question, I could text him, and anybody at this conference can make that contact. By the time you go home, you probably have those numbers if you want them, and that doesn't happen at any conference except I think at this one. And by the time you go home, you've got contacts that you need to make your job better, to make your job more efficient, so you're better at what you do.
Yeah, and guys, I just want to make a point for the young professionals, for the high school and college students that watch. definitely find a small to middle-sized conference where you can have a lot of relational time. It's just so important for your professional development. I remember as a grad student, a lot of people would go to like the AGU conferences and these mega conferences with 8,000 people. You walk in and for me, I just felt completely overwhelmed, and I'm just kind of following around, a professor or two I know, but it wasn't as relational. I mean, it's so important to have a conference that you go to where you can actually sit down and have a meal with meteorologists or other professionals and get to know them. It's building those relationships is so important for your career.
Absolutely. I agree with you there on that one. The AMS conference, great conference, but it's the same way. You've got 4,000 or 5,000 people there, and it's really difficult to make connections. You're just jumping from one thing to the next. And with this one, it's very compact, very close in, and you get to make new friends and new contacts. And driving down the work, going to work, phone rings, Neil Frank. Oh, okay, that's pretty good. You don't normally get that, which is pretty good. But I got to throw a promo in here. The conference next year, April 8th through 11th, registration's open already, and we're starting to get registrations in. So, hey, going over to the website, which is hurricanecenterlive.com, and click on that registration point and register for the conference, and you can set up your hotel room at the same time.
Yeah, and
Alex,
where else?
Alex, I just want to mention, I know you've been sending out invites already. I mean,
Yes.
Who are some of the people that you think might be coming, or for both of you guys, what are some of the different themes we might see at the conference next April?
Well, it's going to be really interesting. We're still trying to get some of those confirmed, but I got a whole bunch of them set up. But we do have the Hurricane Center folks set up. Jamie Rome and, of course, and Cody, we're going to come back. We're going to try and do that first day of a workshop. Just sent an invite out to Jason Sipple. He's done some really good work this year, and so we're looking for Jason to come back in. We've always got Josh coming back. Mark Sudduth is going to be there. We've got a couple of folks in. They're women who've done some research about the Saffir-Simpson scale, how to enhance it, what to do with it, new ratings. So they're coming in, and that should really spark up some good conversation as we get going. And of course, John Dawson, always there to do that hurricane gear, showing us all the latest stuff that we can use. As broadcast meteorologists, we can probably do a little story and things on that. So John will be there. So there's a lot of good folks that are going to come in, regulars, but then some new ones that are going to spark some new conversations within everyone.
I wish Bill was here today. Bill Reed, of course, he's at another conference today in Florida. He's at Flash, I believe, in Clearwater. So I wish he was with us today because he's been a regular from the very beginning as well. And Bill, I'm not going to say we couldn't be here without Bill, but I don't know if we'd be here without Bill because he's so instrumental in helping us find the speakers in those early years when we didn't have the contacts, but he did as a former director of the National Hurricane Center. And Bill is such a critical part of what we do. And he's been with us on these weekly broadcasts, week in and week out. Every once in a while he'll be on a cruise in the middle of the Atlantic somewhere and still joins us, which is amazing, which is pretty cool. And by the way, where else besides this conference can you play putt-putt golf in the hallway of a hotel with Jim Cantori?
This is true. And he makes an 80-foot putt,
Yes. Across a tile floor onto the carpet, bouncing over the threshold, and boom, right into the hole in one.
Yep.
So,
and 2 years in a row.
There's something to be learned there, I think.
No kidding.
And of course, the Billabong, the hospitality suite, and that's where a lot of the relationship are made, is in that hospitality suite, because you get to really sit and visit with people after the day is over, and just sit and talk, and that's what's really cool about it. So,
I think one of the big guys that we're going to get, Hal, is if you remember with us, if you were with us on the show when we had Tom Anderson from Google.
Oh yeah,
the DeepMind guy, he's confirmed, and he's going to try and be there.
Well, that's going to be interesting because we've seen a lot of the Google DeepMind models being used and really accepted by the community. Even a lot of the NHC discussions this year referred to that. It's going to be really interesting to hear an update from him.
No kidding. I bet his presentation, the people are just going to be like this, ready to go, even if it's virtual.
Yeah, when he was on here, it was great. It was really cool when he was on this program and just showing some of the stuff and talking about some of the stuff and how quickly it's changing. That was the cool thing about that is most of our stuff that we talk about, well, in the next 4 years, we plan to do this. With him, it's in the next 4 weeks or 4 days we plan to do this, which is remarkable.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting. I know we've had some AI discussions before that have been really well received at the conference. I'm really, every year I'm always interested to see the yearly update from Josh Morgerman, but I think this next year more than ever, because this was such an unusual season for him. He talks about he doesn't like to go to islands. He's never really been to Cuba or China. And then this year was just a very unusual season, not at all what he would have wanted or expected. He ended up chasing in China. A lot of time in the Philippines, and then his biggest chase of all was in Jamaica, an island. And again, he likes to have that geographic mobility to get to the core, and that's not what this season gave. But I love how flexible he was to kind of break his own rules, get into these cores. And I noticed his social media following, at least on Facebook, tripled this year. I mean, tremendous amount of growth on his own channels. It's going to be really interesting to hear what he has to say in April.
Yeah, no kidding, because it's been such a different season, and I'm particularly interested in the China one, but also that one that he was sitting there in Jamaica. I was wondering whether or not he was going to actually be right there on the edge of the beach for that one.
Yeah, it's going to be his stories are always so high energy and so fascinating anyway. And he talked in his post about how he believed this is the worst core that he's been through, of the 84 eye walls he's gone through or whatever. That this was the worst.
What I loved about his coverage too, especially with Jamaica, he focused so much coverage on all these different people, how they were impacted, what they saw, how they're recovering. I felt like his work there was really documenting what happened in that area with all these other folks, which is great work of a storm chaser. Obviously, he's in the heart of it. He collected unbelievable data that's irreplaceable, but these human stories as well are really important.
So let's take a minute and talk about this hurricane season in general, because it's almost over. By the time you watch this, it may be over.
Yeah. Well, I would think that for all purposes, this thing is pretty much over with. I don't see anything really popping up. I've been watching that gyre, the Central American gyre there, and it really hasn't been able to do much. And that's where we usually get the activity this time of the year.
Right, and every once every 30 years you'll get something in December, but there's no sign of that. You can't say never, but no sign of that. So we're all hearing the same thing. When you go out in public and people know who you are, they say, so what happened to this hurricane season? Thought it was supposed to be busy. I guess it depends on where you were.
Yeah, no
that's
doubt.
a good point, Tim. Yeah, go ahead, Alex. I think you had some good insights on that.
Well, we were just looking at that, looking at all the data that was coming back. First time since 2015, I believe, that we have not had a landfall. We started off the season kind of quiet, then we got gangbusters, and all of a sudden, it's like somebody flipped the switch. It just shut down and stayed that way. We're past the peak, and then it opens up. So what a different season this has been, and we're going to have to go back and break it down to see what were all the elements that were involved in making it the season that it was.
Yeah, Tim, a lot of folks have asked me what happened. Why were there no hurricanes? As far as I know, there were 13 named storms. Climatological average is 14. But again, like we were saying earlier on the broadcast, almost all these storms stayed east. But still, we saw 3 Cat 5 hurricanes. That's the first time that's happened in 20 years. So the storms were there. They just happened to be displaced farther east this year.
Well, of the 5 hurricanes, 4 were majors. So 80% of the hurricanes this year were major hurricanes. And you look at Melissa, the rapid development it went through twice, really, to become something really significant. So I think there's going to be a lot of lessons to be learned from this season. Patterns are patterns, and sometimes it shifts away like that. There's been other years, and I can't quote them now, but when it seems quiet, but it's not, because out in the middle of the Atlantic, and I'm looking at my other screen here because I've got Brian McNulty's page up with all the tracks on it. There's been other years when, there's activity, but it stays offshore. But there's always some impact somewhere. And this year, that significant impact, I guess, would be Melissa in Jamaica, and where Josh was. But yeah. Doesn't take much of a shift. You look at all these lines are out in the Atlantic. If you just move a little bit to the west, and you'd have 4 impacts on the east coast of the U.S.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tim. And it comes back to what we always say, it only takes one, right? If you live in central or western Jamaica, this was the worst hurricane season you can ever remember. People on the upper Texas coast talk about 1983 was this terrible hurricane season because Category 3 Hurricane Allison hit Galveston, Houston area. When you look at the climatology, there were only 4 named storms that whole season. And people say, what do you mean? That was a terrible season, right? For them, it was terrible because they got hit.
Right, same when Andrew hit Florida. That was a quiet season, Same idea, but it only takes one. And these seasons that the 2020 and 2005 that were so busy, those are anomalies, and there's no science that says we're headed toward those years every year. There's science saying other things, more intensity, things like that. But to see years like 2005 over and over and over again, we've seen nothing that indicates that. At least I haven't.
Yeah, and all the research that I've seen doesn't point that direction. Hal, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and like we've just seen so much rapid intensification over the past decade, in part because we have so much fuel out there that really warms sea surface temperatures. But like you're saying, Tim and Alex, it doesn't mean that every season is going to be a robust season with tons of impacts in the U.S.
Exactly. So this one, I think we should just thank our lucky stars, basically, that everything stayed away, that Josh got a lot of sleep this hurricane season, that Hal, you didn't have a chance to really chase anywhere. You didn't go have a chance to go anywhere because there wasn't a place to go, really, unless you wanted to Jamaica.
It was a strange season for sure. I think it's the first time in the past 8 years that I did not actually get into a hurricane, just an unusual season. Then it's interesting how this works out. With GeoTrek, we're starting a new documentary series called Extreme Explorations, where we go into different regions of the world and document what's the deadliest disaster in that region, what are the lessons learned, and what are locals doing to mitigate those losses. And it just so happened the week before, Melissa, I was up in New Jersey for the New Jersey Association of Floodplain Management conference, and one of the first episodes on this documentary series we're going to launch is for the state of New Jersey, looking back at Superstorm Sandy back in 2012. So it was weird. At least it gave me some place to go and to get into the history. And then the timing of that with Melissa, I wasn't able to get over to Jamaica. But what I've learned through this, even if we don't have a landfalling hurricane, there's always lessons to be learned everywhere you go, if not in the current season, by looking, to the past. And for some areas of our coast, you don't have to look back that far to learn some pretty important lessons.
Oh, totally agreed on that. I think people forget about what's happened in that region, and then you get so many people that move in and they have no clue what has happened there in the past. So it's good to bring up the past so that they can learn what can possibly happen right there where they're at now.
Well, Hal, you talk about that a lot in one of your presentations at our conference, and my brothers go to the conference as well, use this all the time when we're talking. We'll go someplace and say, well, I've been here twice, and every time I've come here, this happens. And so you just assume that's the norm. Well, I've lived here 5 years and it's never flooded, and you showed your timeline that showed that, well, 10 years ago it did, and 25 years ago it did, and 70 years ago it did, but your history is that it doesn't happen. Clearly it does.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as humans, we tend to have a short timeline. And so for us, 5 years, 10 years is a long time. With Mother Nature, it's just a blink of an eye. So that is one way that people definitely get blindsided. And I love when Josh Morgerman came on the GeoTrek podcast. He has a world record for going in the most hurricane cores. And I asked him about generalizing. He said, you absolutely cannot generalize hurricanes, right? When you talk to someone that's been through 3 hurricanes or 4 hurricanes, they might say, why do they always hit at night? Things like that. It just shows that they have a relatively small sample size, right? When you expand that sample size to some of the more well-known chasers, Josh being the foremost in my mind, he says, wow, I've seen hurricanes at night, I've seen hurricanes in the day, I've seen fast-moving hurricanes, slow-moving hurricanes. Sometimes the front end is more intense than the back end. Sometimes it's the other way around. He's seen that you really can't generalize hurricanes when you increase the sample size.
And that makes it such a challenge for us and that are trying to tell the story, and here comes the hurricane, what's going to happen, because each one is different. And people expect, well, even if you've been through one, like here where we are, most recent, maybe Hannah back in 2020, people went through that. They say, well, now I know what to expect because I've been through one. And the truth is they don't. Even Josh doesn't know what to expect, and he's been through 84 of them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Tim, you have to take each hurricane separately, pay very close attention to those specific watches and warnings from the National Hurricane Center, National Weather Service. You could have 10 hurricanes and they're all going to be some different combination of wind, rain, storm surge, tornadoes, and then the timing of it all. When does the water come in? You might have one hurricane where the surge comes in well before the hurricane force winds, and in another one it might be the opposite of that depending on the track. So hurricanes are very nuanced, and if you tweak the track, you tweak the size and different things like that, all of a sudden all these different hazards change around. So it's really important we stay focused to the details on the forecast and the watches and warnings that we're given.
Totally agree on that. I mean, we have to focus, for me, it's focusing on the impacts and then what to do if you know that's coming. So that's an important part of what we as broadcast meteorologists need to do. We need to focus on those impacts. This is what the storm surge is going to be, 8 to 12 feet. This is what you need to do now if you live in this area, you need to evacuate or you need to move to higher ground or whatever. But we need to be able to tell people what to do based upon that impact.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot, and I think that's the benefit of what we do with this conference is we hear and see and learn about those impacts and are able to express that to our viewers. We talk about our conferences to teach the teachers, and as the broadcast meteorologists are the teachers of the community. We're the people that are out there saying this is what could happen with this. You need to be ready, but we need to understand that. The only way we can understand it is when people like Hal, who you go into the storm, people like Josh, Mark Sudduth, everybody that goes in there and comes back and says, look, this is what can happen. This is the possibility. Now we see that, and it makes it easier, or at least more effective, I think, for us if we learn from that to tell our audiences what to expect.
Yeah, that's true, Tim. And it's not only even the hazards. You know, I love when I'm on the ground in a hurricane zone. I call it going to school. I mean, I learn more from a week or two in a hurricane zone from what's happening physically, but even more so socially. I just talk to a lot of people, try to understand where are they getting their weather information from. How are they making their decisions, and what are the lessons they learn? What would they change next time? And a story that stands out to me was a couple from the Midwest. They're actually from Illinois. They were in Southwest Florida right when Hurricane Ian hit. They nearly drowned in Ian, and they said all of the locals were telling us, you have nothing to worry about. You're just green. You've never been through a hurricane before. But they said everyone back home in the Midwest said this is really bad. You need to get out. And it was that interesting perspective that, you know, again, we knew as professionals, this was a very deadly, catastrophic storm. But for a lot of folks that live there in that area, they had not seen the core of a landfalling hurricane from the Gulf side. And like we said before, in their 20, 30, 40 years experience, they never saw anything like an Ian, both as far as wind intensity, but even more importantly from storm surge. And so I love really getting those stories on the ground and understanding, you know, who was impacted, how did they make decisions, and then what are lessons that they learned that we can pass on to our community at the next NTWC conference.
And earlier, you did mention GeoTrek earlier. Talk a little bit more about that because, you know, I love the stories that you tell. You ask great questions and you get people to talk and about you know, up close and personal experiences and talk a little bit about that because it's an amazing podcast.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for asking about that. I'm the director of extreme weather and disaster science at GeoTrek, where we're exploring the world to tell stories about extreme weather and natural disasters not covered by the mainstream media. We're really passionate about getting out there in extremes. We do a lot on social media. We host the GeoTrek podcast, one of the top podcasts on the topic of natural disasters. But we're really trying to understand, both from interviewing storm survivors and industry professionals, what are the impacts of these extreme events, and then what are lessons we can learn, and how can we get out ahead of these events to mitigate losses and be better prepared. And so we work with everything from professionals to the general public when we're in disaster zones. And it's really interesting always for me to just talk to people that live in a disaster prone area and just to soak up their knowledge and their experience from years of storms, what they've seen, how trends are changing. But again, we'll interview those folks on the ground. We'll air that on the GeoTrek podcast. You can listen to that wherever you a listen to podcast, your favorite podcast platform. And again, we have a YouTube channel as well now, and social media content where we're just trying to connect the audience with people that endure natural disasters, extreme weather, and also the professionals that do their work to help mitigate those losses.
A fascinating program, and we appreciate you sharing those stories. And is there, you talked about the Illinois couple, is there any other story that stands out in your mind from all those shows that you've done that just makes you go, that you just can't forget, something that just really jumps out when you think about the show?
Yeah, what's interesting is it seems like natural disasters have a way of blindsiding us. And I feel like a challenge as a broadcast meteorologist or a disaster scientist is to try to get out ahead of this and outthink the storm. Like, what is this storm going to do that's going to try to blindside us? We think back to Hurricane Helene last year. I mean, we're all focused on Florida, and then there's this catastrophic flooding in North Carolina, from the heavy rainfall. So just getting out into these events and interviewing people, and I think there are things that you can learn when you're on the ground of a disaster that you could not really learn in a textbook or from a course. An example that actually comes to mind, I was covering wildfires in Texas several years ago. I was in a little town called Carbon that got mostly destroyed by a wildfire. I'm driving down the street and there are all these charred out homes that were burnt. And this one house is standing untouched by the flames, and a woman was standing out front. I thought, I got to get this story here. Like, how does one house survive when all the other houses burn? So I went up and I said, ma'am, do you mind if I ask you, how did your house survive? If you can believe this story, she said the morning of the fire, she had a utility company come out and dig a trench on the west side of her house to put in a pipeline. And she said that dug up all the grass and the bushes. So when the wildfire came through, it couldn't reach the house. And I said, you mean to say like a 30-foot wide strip of dirt on the side of your house saved your house? And she said, yes. It got me thinking, because this fire came off a dry line with strong winds from the west. And 11 years before, there was a similar fire that also burnt that area. So it got me thinking, just from seeing this example on the ground and talking to this woman, could we mandate or at least encourage people to put patios or, concrete walkways or different things on the west side of their houses in this fire-prone part of the country that would help mitigate against fire that's going to approach on these dry lines in the spring from west to east? Just an example of how seeing something on the landscape can make you question and ask questions to people. Think about better ways that we can get out ahead of disasters to reduce loss. And I'm sure there are examples like that as well with hurricanes and floods, just things you see on the landscape that don't fit. But if you're curious and you ask questions, even homeowners that are not industry professionals can give you some really interesting insights about what helped their house survive in a disaster.
That's terrific. Dr. Halnita, man, I love the work that you do. I can't say that enough, and I probably say it too much. I don't know, but I really appreciate what you do. And we'll wrap this up here pretty quickly, but I did have one thought about this hurricane season, and that's that it kind of reminds me of a football season. There may be a lot going on out there, but some teams are just left out, like Penn State, and others, like Indiana, are strong and powerful and can take the win.
Tim, I knew somehow you were going to get an Indiana Hoosiers,
He
angle.
worked it in there.
I was convinced it was going to happen.
Well, we had a little time to come up with something. So yeah, I'm proud of my Hoosiers. We're a football school now.
Mm-hmm. Finally.
Hey, congratulations. I mean, you guys are having an unbelievable season, unbeaten. This is a one for the record books for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. And hopefully we'll keep it going. And on the other side, Alex, the Indiana basketball team, it's supposed to be the legacy team.
Yes.
Struggled with Incarnate Word on Sunday.
What?
Struggled with Incarnate Word.
Incarnate Word?
At Indiana. Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
We won, but it was a struggle. I thought, come on, guys.
Maybe they were just having an off day.
We'll go with that. So, Hal, do you have any thoughts to wrap up? And then Alex, I'll ask the same question. Hal, as we come to the end of the hurricane season, the end of this program, our last regularly scheduled program, we'll keep shows coming, but the last new live program, any thoughts you want to share?
I still think it was an interesting year as far as technological advances. Again, seeing AI become so mainstream and used in our forecast and forecast discussions. And then we saw other technologies that we hosted right here on NTWC Plus, like the flood vision from Climate Central. You know, these visions, it goes back to what Alex was recently saying about we need to humanize the forecast, right? And that's our job as forecasters. We can't just tell people how many inches of rain, the miles per hour of wind, or how much storm surge. We have to help them visualize what this looks like. What does this look like in your community, and what are actions you could take? I know we have the folks from Flood Vision here on NTWC to show us this technology they have that actually shows you a picture of what your community would look like with different levels of storm surge. So technologies like this have come out this year. We've hosted them here on NTWC, and it just encourages me as we move ahead into 2026. Technology keeps advancing, and we're bringing those people on the show. They're going to be at the conference next year, and it's just helping us be all the more prepared for next hurricane season.
Terrific. Alex, what do you think? I mean, it's been hurricane season wise. We've talked about that program wise. I think it's been good. What's left is to look forward to next year, I guess.
With the rise of AI this year, I think that's the one that really caught my attention, was the fact that Google DeepMind did so well with a lot of these storms, and it is now moved up into the mainstream. So I want to see the advances in that. I want to see where that's going and how that's going to help the folks at the Hurricane Center do their job even better or even faster than what we're looking at, and perhaps give us an even longer term look into what's going on with these storms as they start to come off. We saw some interesting research coming off of Central America, I make it Central Africa, where we're watching these lows and how they develop and how much water goes into the air there, what the impacts of the wind and things are. So there's so much research, there's so much really good stuff out there. I'm looking forward to seeing that this coming year.
And I agree. The takeaway for me has been the AI as well, and just how rapidly it's advancing, as we talked about earlier. When the government updates a model, whether it's the GFS or the European doing theirs, I mean, it's a big deal when they come up with an update. It takes a long time to develop it, takes a long time to implement it, and then to announce it, and it's a big deal. Where AI is changing daily, Google DeepMind or whatever, that stuff's changing almost by the minute. It's changing so fast, and I think that's where those rapid advancements are going to be. And you're right, it's just a matter of waiting to see how they're going to help us all in the end. Alex, give me the info on the conference for 2026 once again.
Well, again, it's April 8th through the 11th. Go to hurricanecenterlive.com. The registration's there. We're going to be updating the schedule, but I can kind of give you an idea of what we have set up for that right now. Let's pull that back up. We've got the first full day, which is going to be that Wednesday. That's going to be a hurricane conference, kind of a workshop set up with Jamie Rome and, of course, other folks there at the Hurricane Center coming in. Second day, we've got Phil Klotzbeck. He's going to have the hurricane seasonal forecast. Jamie's going to be there. Cody Fritz, Chris Lancy coming in from the Hurricane Center, Jason Sipple, Maria Torres, Leslie Chapman, Henderson, Ryan Rickard, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Rickard, Hurricane Hunters. We've got to get those pilots from that aircraft that had to turn around. That is the first in a long time. They just said, that's it, we got to go. This is not good. Warren Fadley is going to be there. You remember awesome. Warren Fadley, John Dawson, of course. We've got Dan Kruger with Flood Vision, so he's coming to show us those pictures that we talked about. And this past couple of weekends, I ran into Alan Gerard as a kind of a Netflix documentary thing we were doing. So Alan has agreed to come. So he was the former top guy there at the Severe Storm Prediction Center. Of course, we got Mark Sudduth, Brian Norcross, Jennifer Collins with that hurricane rating scale. Then we've got Michael Lowry, Dr. Laura Myers also coming. She's got some amazing research. And then Tom Anderson, the Google DeepMind guy. And of course, we can't leave out our good friend who's been in there 84 times, Josh Morgan. All of that's coming. So you can register right now on the website and get your hotel room right now before we run out of space.
Amazing. What an amazing program. And keep in mind that once you land, if you fly in, pretty much everything's covered. Your shuttle from the airport is covered. All your meals are covered. And once you get here, pretty much everything's covered. So register and get yourself here, and we'll take care of you once you get here, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, and don't forget, if they were broadcast meteorologists, we've got 2 days there where you can do live hits We've got the live view units. You can do live hits for your weathercast, do live hits for your newscast, or you can just record something for your hurricane specials.
And that's all free. That doesn't cost anything. We take care of that for you. That's all comes with your registration. So, take advantage of that. Well, here we are, end of November, the end of another hurricane season. It's been a season one way or another. We've talked about a lot of great things. We're going to talk a lot more. We'll be back with regular programs again, starting right before the season starts. Probably we'll do another show to promote the season, but to promote the program and promote the conference itself. But just need to say thanks to everybody. Hal, thank you for being such a big part of what we're doing.
Absolutely,
we appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. This is always a highlight of my week. I'm going to be sad for the winter time that we take a little break, but before you know it, April will be back, and we'll be together in South Padre.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just get on a Zoom call and talk,
Yeah, exactly. We'll just have fun.
and thanks to Bill Reed. Again, Bill is normally here, but he's at another conference this week. We know that he'd like to have some thoughts on the season as well, but we'll hear those, I guess, when we get to April in South Padre Island. And Alex, great job putting the programs together week in and week out. It's always a blast. Thank you for all you do back in the control room there in the living room of your house.
Yeah, one day we'll do a behind-the-scenes look.
Just unblur the camera, right?
Yeah, just unblur the camera, and you can see all the electronics. I swear, I'm not usurping everybody's electricity in the subdivision, like Bill says, but the lights do dim.
Let's thank our sponsors one more time before
Absolutely.
We go. The USAA, the South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Weather Company, Weather Boy, and LiveView. That wraps it up for this season, but stay tuned. We'll do programs every week that are pre-recorded. We'll show you some of the highlights of the last few months. You can always tune in on a Wednesday and get the latest show. But until next year, take care. Have an awesome Thanksgiving, wonderful holiday season, and we'll see you next spring. All right? Bye.
Bye.